Hello and welcome to another drawing video. This video is going to be a little different as I had already drawn the picture in the last video and I will be coloring it in this picture. If you may or may not know, the picture I drew last time was Mae Again from Night in the Woods, which is a video game that I'm currently playing and is, probably one of my favorite games that has come out of recent years. The program that I'm using to color is a program called GIMP, spelled G-I-M-P. It is a paint tool that is slightly better than Microsoft Paint. There are, people can get very good at it. And I would say that I'm probably decent at it. What you're seeing now is my normal coloring procedure, whereas I go through and clean up all the edges that were made when I scanned in the image to make it so it matches the image that I drew on the page and, I guess transforms it to look better. It was probably right about here that I was deciding whether or not I wanted to do borderlines, because on the character model for Mae, there were no borderlines. But I decided it would be best if I added borderlines so that I could have that definition and whatnot. So I will go back over here to the other boot and add in those borderlines, as you can see. And I always add borderlines to things I do because I generally feel like it makes it look neater. As you can see, I am struggling writing my own name. But this is my normal coloring procedure. This whole image took about 2 hours just about to color. And that is because I didn't do any shading, like on the sides or anything. I left it as flat colors because the image that I took it from, while there is some gradients of color, it is fairly one color. So I decided that I didn't need to do shadows and lights and everything because it wasn't part of the base image. And also it was very hot, and I was already feeling pretty grouchy by the time I finished this image, because even before I started this image, it was starting to get very warm in my room. And it doesn't help that when I was making that video and this portion of the video, the after commentary, it is probably the hottest portion of Mae it's ever been. It's just ridiculous. And one thing a lot of people who know me know, I do not like the heat. My temperature range is between 60 and 70. Anything hotter than 70 is generally too hot, which is bizarre for most people. Most people like it, 75 and to 80 or so, but I really prefer it to be much colder. So this portion of the drawing that I'm doing, I'm coloring in this part of the bat, and I'm looking, and I'm this really doesn't look it looks like it's curved for some reason, and I thought adding to the bottom would make it better, but then I was like, no, I do have to move this piece. So I used my select tool and I pulled it out, which is something that Microsoft Paint does not have, is a select tool. So like I said, the program is better than Microsoft Paint. It's just I have no patience for art, as apparently. I really enjoy coloring and, like, drawing and everything. It's just I really don't have the, like, tenacity to, like, sit there for days or hours and really fine tune my thing. And that's kind of why my art has just been at a standstill for the 3 years that I've been drawing. It's gotten slightly better, as art tends to do as you just practice more and more. But honestly, if I really had applied myself and, like, I could have made something out of this, like, as an art career, possibly. But art is a hobby for me. It's never been, like, a source of income or something that made me truly passionate. It was like, I enjoy what I do, but I wasn't going to chase it to the ends of the earth, I suppose. As you can see, in this part particularly, some of the border lines that, like, when I scanned it in, got really blurred, and you really kind of have to guess which of the 5 lines is the actual line that you're supposed to follow. Hence why the drawn image sometimes looks a lot different than the colored image, for me anyway. And that is one of the downsides of drawing on paper. First is that you end up with this, like, weird border, and you end up tracing yourself. And I have been accused of tracing, but I do not. I do color and draw all of my images myself. I do use reference images, and when it's someone else's, like, character or something, I usually try to stay on model as best as I can while still giving it my own, like, I guess, personality. It's like, it's still their character, but it's in my art style, in a way. So, but it can look like, it is traced, which I understand, and, it does kind of annoy me when people are like, did you trace that? And it's like, no, I just drew it. If it was traced, it would look much better. But yes, it was very hot in terms of temperature-wise when I was coloring this image, and it's going to be even hotter today. When I started off, like, what I wanted to color, I was originally going to color the first image I drew for my channel, which was the Remy Cormo one, and I couldn't get a color palette that worked. I didn't like any of the color palette I had selected, and I couldn't get, like, his skin tone right. I didn't know, like, because it's really hard because there is no color palette to take from, like, whereas Mae has colors that, that's what, like, you can recognize as her. Remy is a black and white drawing on, like, the Weaver's, like, Tumblr and stuff. So it's like, if you're going to add color, you kind of have to just make your own colors. And it was very warm, and I was frustrated, and I was like, I can't find any colors that are fitting. So after multiple attempts of trying to start a video based on that, I decided that I was going to do Mae instead. What you'll often see me do, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, what you see me do is I will move the camera up and then move it all the way over to to the edge of one side, and then move it back to the position I just had it in. And that is to make sure that when I move it up, there isn't, like, random white blotches or gray blotches from, scanning it in the background sides that I'd have to go back and fix later. it's just kind of my way of, similar to like a typewriter, just like moving like completely across one side and then moving completely across the other side. I'm making a motion with my hand, but you can't see it. Yeah, this part, I was trying to, like, because like when I was coloring in the zero on her chest, I was like, this really doesn't look correct. Like the circle looks a lot rougher than I did, so I like kind of pulled the camera back to see if it looked all right, and I was like, yeah, it looks all right. And at that point, it was kind of a, well, I could, spend the time to try to fix it, but it looks all right, and it's a t-shirt, so it doesn't have to be completely like circular because you're wearing it, so it like kind of folds and maybe doesn't look like like if it was sitting on a flat surface. That was my logic behind it. But yeah, same thing with the shoulders right there and like the rest of the shirt. It's like I was like, the only parts I was really focused on making sure they were like straight was like the like face and whatnot, and like the arms. Whereas like that's like not skin, it's like fur, but it's like it's like the body. It needs to be like straighter than the cloth. The cloth can have like a little bit of fold to it. Yep, drawing in those whiskers. Yeah, the shape of the nose is very easy for me to draw because it is just a O in Nordic runes. That's all I have to say about that. So if you ever see that symbol outside of Night in the Woods, you know that it's an O. I mean, it has other meanings as well. Um, I don't know all of them. So while I was drawing this image, I cut it out of the video. I was listening to music online, and my internet randomly decided to like reboot. So I was like, oh great. So I had to like open up iTunes and start listening to iTunes, which is why you'll start seeing songs like flying at like Mach 3 in the corner over there. Now I begin working on the eye. When I was coloring in this eye, I was very pleased at the way it looked. And when I started coloring the other eye, the shape of it really was just didn't match this eye, and I was like, man, I just don't like that. So I actually end up taking this eye and like copying it. Like I just copy the whole eye, flip it, and paint over the other eye. But what I'm doing right now is I'm actually like seeing if it looks better with or without the border, and I decided it looks better without the border. So yeah, here I go. I go over to this eye, and it looks fine on paper, but when I had the ability to make the eyes look somewhat symmetrical, I was like, well, you know what they say, work smarter, not harder. But yeah, because it just, I don't know, something about the shape of this one was just really off to me. it just looked like oddly shaped compared to the other eye. So I just painted over the whole thing and copied this eye and copied that, flipped it, repositioned it, and then I actually go in and fix some of the inconsistencies, make it look much better. Which is something I do like about coloring, which you can't do on paper as well, because it's like you can erase on paper when before you ink it, but it just is a lot harder because you still see that like back. It's like it's still there. It's like the ghost of it is still there, just haunting you. Like, haha, you thought you could erase me, but here I am. So here I go, drawing the last portion of the head. And we're about to reach my favorite part of the video, because it just proves just how wonky this program can be sometimes. So everyone who has played the game knows that Mae has like red like dye in her hair, like right at the top there. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to do something similar to my test image right there, which is like, draw these and then do a nice gradient between the red and the blue to have like, kind of fade to it. That was my idea. And there is a gradient tool in yeah, it keeps like filling the whole thing because I was like, fine, I'll have to color it by hand. Yeah, that was what the gradient did. Is it just it took the whole thing and it just like yeah. So here I go trying to like select just that area. Like, oh, I'll use this and I'll do the gradient tool does not work in GIMP. I've noticed it does that. It just makes a straight line and it's like, so here I go, just trying to, like, color it in normally with, like, the paint tool, because I was like, you know what, this is not working. I'm just going to have to do it old-fashioned. And for the 3 lines that were on the forehead, I didn't go back and add them in this video, because I had forgotten until after I had finished filming. But I did go back and I added those lines, and you can see that in the final image at the end, which I will have linked in the description. And now that I have everything painted, I decided to go in and add a bunch of stars in the background. I started off with the big stars, which were, as you can see, 6 on the paint tool, and then I went down to the 3, which was the line tool I was using, or the line size I was using, and I just added a crap ton of little stars. Just really filled it out. I like thought about while I was doing it. I was like, oh, it would be cool if I like did some constellations or something in the background. But then I was like, no, that's like way too complicated. So there it is. There is the completed image, Mae Borowski. Again, I normally would have added shading and whatnot, but I felt like it didn't need it. There you go. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, you can leave a like to let me know. And if not, that's alright. And I will see you guys in the next project. Take care.